This is Talk Over Tea,
a place for a casual conversation about life in local government.
With Kassandra
and Claudel Frederic,
elected officials from the city of Amesbury, Massachusetts.
Relax with us for a moment. The tea is hot.
Welcome to another episode of Talk Over Tea. Hey, Claudel.
Hi.
How are you today?
Fantastic.
That's great. We have a great episode ahead for everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'll take this chance to just remind everyone that they can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on YouTube. On YouTube, you can actually watch us, not just listen. So check those out and subscribe, which means you'll get a little alert when we have a new episode for you. And then leave us reviews, comments, and share so that your friends get this news too.
Great reminder.
There you go. So today we are going to talk about running for office. We'll see if we can inspire a few other people to join us in this endeavor, whether you're in Amesbury or not, for any office, and talk a little bit about what it's been like to run campaigns, what our observations are, and see what we have.
Let's get into
to
it.
Share. Well, hopefully we inspire some folks, and it's not a big downer. So, because I know I love what I do.
Yes,
and I think you do too.
I definitely do. So at the beginning, it was definitely a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But I've definitely gotten a lot more comfortable, and I kind of feel like at one point it was kind of like, will I run again? Now it's like I need to. Actually run again.
That's great.
So that's where I'm at with my mentality with it. So yes, I do love what I do.
Oh, good. I know we've talked before about our why, why we ran for office, why we love what we do. But what do you think you would tell someone else about why they should run?
Yeah, it has to be an internal reason. I can't tell you why you should run aside from you really have to run. But if you do plan on running, you should have some type of emotional attachment as to why you do want to run. And give yourself, the encouragement you need when sometimes you don't have it. But we can't really tell them, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, hey,
you've got to have your own reason.
Yeah, you really have to have your own why.
In order to stay motivated and, be really invested in the position that you're running for. I totally agree with you. I think people have to have their own reason why. It's the only way to really activate a campaign and get people to come along with you, right? To share your passion and be really focused. But I think in general, we have a government based in public participation, right? We need people to fill these positions. So,
absolutely.
We need diverse representation.
Yep.
We need people at the table who are, from single parent households, who run single parent households, who are, older adults on fixed incomes. We need people who are entrepreneurs, who are professionals from a variety of careers. Right. Realtors, attorneys, accountants, educators, former educators, right? Everything that sort of touches what we do, to have a really sort of robust, vibrant, local government, a group that is representing the interests of our communities, right? And so diverse, ages, race, gender,
different influences.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to, because the people that you have running for local government, the influences of the city, there's going to be a little taste of everything in your city if you have a good, diverse, you know what I mean, group of people running for leadership.
So many of us see councils or select boards that are not diverse, right?
Correct.
There's sort of this typical profile that
I said it, so
that runs for office, and there are reasons why, right? And I talk about this whenever I'm on a panel or with a group of people, and we're talking about sort of motivating. For me, it's often women to run for office, and there's this sort of I'm sure there's a proper word for it, but sort of proximity. This is rule of proximity that happens that. If there's an open seat and, people on the council or on the board are talking about recruiting someone new to fill the seat, they go to people in their network, which we know are typically people like them, right?
Correct.
Who have similar values, interests, exposure, experience, grew up in environments like them.
Yep.
And it just continues to perpetuate this representation that is
Not changing.
that is not diverse, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, one of the big hurdles is again, what we're going to talk about today, sort of getting people to run and finding people who are willing to step up and be the first, or sort of, get over that hurdle. And getting people on those boards to think outside of that box, to think outside of their network and find people who are not like them. If you're thinking about, your friend, this other guy who, maybe think about his wife instead, and just helping to get that diverse representation in our local governments that we're looking for, right? For any position, we have library trustees, we have city council, we have planning board, we have, select boards in towns. Of course, you have mayor. There's just so many positions, even, state reps and senators and, things like that, but especially on the local level.
I think there's a big misconception, and maybe that's something we could help break down. A lot of people hear these positions and they think they have to know it all or know everything. And it's far from the truth. Just like everything else, you could read about it all day, but until you start doing it, until you start experiencing it, you're really never going to understand fully what it takes. You're never going to really understand how important it really is. You could have an idea, but you really have to just jump in and not let people deter you from doing that. You know what I mean? It's easy to just say, you know what, forget it. Yeah,
it's huge. I talk about that a lot too, that, most people running for office have never done it before unless they're the incumbent. So it's also, we'll talk about campaigning, but that's a really hard piece of campaigning. And people say, well, they have no experience, right? And that's a difficult narrative to get over if you're the new person running. But anyone running, unless they're the incumbent, has never done it before, right? You don't often get someone who was a counselor and maybe in a different town who comes to your town and runs for council again. Like you've only done it if you've, you only understand it if you've done it.
Exactly.
And you have to be willing to learn. And the people the rest of the folks in our community and the people who are voting have to sort of give us that grace and understand, that we learn from experience. And that is how this, sort of representative government works and why they get to come and talk at meetings, and they, have the ability to communicate with their counselors and talk to them about, what their interests are and what they care about. And if they're unhappy with votes that are taken, that's how this all works.
Right.
But it is a huge challenge for folks who are thinking about running. And I know people, I've heard people say, well, I want to get involved, but I don't want to run yet because I don't think I know enough and I don't want to be embarrassed. And, I feel like I need to be like really knowledgeable before I run. And I think there's, and I'll say between men and women, that's often how we approach, job applications and things like that too. A lot of women hold themselves back until they know everything. And a lot of men say, I'll just learn when I get there. I feel qualified. I'm going to learn on the fly. And I think that also holds back a lot of women from running for office. And, we've got to be willing to just to try. And again, the voters need to be willing to give some grace and understand that variety of experience does make a big difference on the board, right? You're not, yes, there's value in an incumbent who's been there and is learning, over a period of time, but to bring in someone who has lived experience and represents your community from any walk of life, from, their family, their work life, their profession, their training, that brings a lot of value to that room.
I think that's the biggest value. It's like my issues are possibly the same as yours. Like the same things I may want to see change. Maybe exactly what you want to see change. You know what I mean? And I think it brings it back to the why. Just understanding that it could be the smallest why. And I don't think you don't have to come from a place where you've had years of passion for wanting to change your community or anything like that.
Yeah.
Something could happen in your life today
Yeah.
that sparks that passion or motivation. And we just need to pay attention to that and get active, like get after it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about campaigning and what that's like. Again, it's hard to get people to decide they want to run a race, that they want to step up and put their name on a ballot. I can talk roughly about, the time frame in Amesbury, but sort of how long you have to decide. There's different ways to run races, and it does take often, and there's data out there that shows a nudge, right? And there's not a lot of people who just think, wake up in the morning and think, yeah, I'm going to run for office. Usually a friend, a family member, people in the community need to give you a bit of a nudge to say, hey, I think you'd be great at that, which means it's on all of us to tell our friends that they would be good in office, But then once you've decided to take that leap, right, put your name on a ballot, and we've both been there. What was it? I'll first start, by asking you, what was it like to, run that campaign, and, any lessons, advice for folks?
So I would say my situation was kind of a little different than what you would kind of deal with or what you have dealt with, because every time you have ran, you had opponents. So
That's
you
right.
were
We have
running
different experience
against some people or a person. Where my situation when I came in, pretty much there was an open seat. Yes, I still kind of put my name out there just because I wanted people to know, hey, I am running. But unfortunately, there wasn't like a heavy race. And I think that is a problem.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I think people should be able to have people to choose from.
Yep.
And say, hey, you know what? I don't actually want him to be a city councilor. I'm going to vote for this person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's a problem. So for me, I was able to run a light campaign. I still put up a few signs at friends' house locally and stuff like that, and did an event to kind of invite people to come out and meet me in person. But I didn't get that competitive like vibe. And for me, I really thrive in competitive situations. That's when I'm like, no, it's not going to fly like that.
Yeah.
Then I really step it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's how it was for my situation. But my why was still my why.
Yeah.
And like when I spoke to people, it's the same thing I would tell them. You know what I mean? So I think your experience was definitely different from mine.
Yeah, I've always had an opponent, and that's sort of, that difference is important to understand, that it's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen because someone else is basically making the same decision you are, that they think they want to run for office. Something could change in their life. They could enter late. They could leave the race early. They could, anything could happen. And so just knowing your why and that you are really invested in this, you want this position, and sort of running your own campaign is really important. There are less and less people running campaigns, and we'll talk about that. But it is hard to run a campaign. There are sort of systemic barriers to that. I know when I ran my first campaign, there were sort of perceived conflicts with the job that I had at the time, which meant I had to step back from my professional role in order to run the campaign. So for some people, that's financially not a viable option for them, and that will keep them from running. So there's, the voters of our community members need to think about that, of like who's running and how is this set up for them or set up against them. There's I think some people are afraid of the time commitment of actually being in office once they get that far. There's it costs money to run a race. Just the actual, you have to decide, right? It's different if you have somebody running against you or you don't, and you don't know what you're going to be up against, but you have to do some fundraising, sort of one way or the other, depends on how intense, but does cost money, and for anyone with families and kids, you could be out of the house a lot. You might have to add on costs for childcare. And that is not usually something you can pay for with campaign funds. So you have to add that on top of that financial sort of burden of possibly also stepping back from your professional career. So it does set up, these challenges for running a campaign. I think we have to be realistic about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, again, sort of for everyone else to just think about what does that mean for who is running and how can you help, right? How can you get involved and help set people up for success? Again, thinking about, hey, if I want a council that represents my community, who's missing and why, and what can we do to sort of help, right?
Correct. And I think people will be surprised too, the amount of people in your community that is so willing to donate to your campaign and help out, because these people are in your community. They do not have time to implement or be part of the change they want to see, aside from other civic engagement you know what I mean? Like that they could be part of.
Yeah.
So they would love to see you step up and kind of be the representation for them.
Yeah, if they can't
Right?
do
If
it,
they
right?
can't
They
do
need
it.
someone else, and then they can stand
Exactly.
behind you or stand side by side.
100%.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised by how many people that are willing to kind of have your back in that way. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it takes a lot.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. It's no light duty. you know?
Right. Yeah, and I started to say, I think people are afraid of what it takes to be sort of in office, right? How much
Right.
of a time commitment it is, how much attention there will be on them and their family.
Right.
Do they have to be on social media all the time? Do they have to participate in social media? Do they have to be at all of these events?
Yeah.
And so we can talk a little bit about that too. And you have a family. I don't know if you
Yeah.
want to weigh in on sort of how you manage
Yeah.
your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a lot.
So for me, like I feel like the way I go about it is maybe a less traditional type of way. Whatever I do, whether it's politics, professionally, if I cannot be myself, I won't do it. So for those that do not like me, not that I don't care, but I'm still going to sleep at night, right? At the end of the day, I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So some of the pressures that others may feel, I don't really feel some of those pressures, but
Yeah.
that's not everybody.
Yeah.
It takes like certain personalities to be like, you know what, I'm still going to go about my day and do, at the end of the day, yeah, I'm in leadership position, but I'm still really human.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think it takes being really human to connect with people. And as a new person in leadership, if you come in, that's the people that are going to connect with you and want to even like complain about things to you are people that feel like they could actually connect with you. And that's kind of how I've approached it.
Yeah.
And with my family, it's like my wife understands that aside from work, there is a time commitment. And to be a good city councilor, it's all about how much time you are willing to put into it.
Yeah.
And being a new city councilor, I'm still trying to balance that out, but
Sure.
I do have to put in more time than maybe a seasoned city councilor. You know what I mean? And then further on, it might get a little bit easier, but it's at the end of the day, you get what you put in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I just to add, we have 9 city councilors in Amesbury, and I think everyone handles it a little differently.
100%.
Right? And I've seen city councilors do all different, sort of take all different approaches. You can be really active. You can go to all of the events. You can start your own blog and,
Yeah.
start your own newsletter and find ways for your constituents to hear from you and communicate regularly. You can
Be
just
on
make
a podcast.
You could be on a podcast. We do this in our in our spare time, right? You can just make yourself available when they need you, and
Yeah.
your email address is on the website. You can. Some don't come to many events at all because they do have
Right.
a lot of other things on their
Going on,
plate,
yeah.
and that's fine.
Right.
That's fine. And some aren't on social media at all, believe
Right.
it or not.
Yeah.
Right. There's some that you see a lot of. And so I think people get that sort of they get in that mindset of like, well, if I were going to be a city councilor, I'd have to be on all of those community Facebook groups, and I'd have to be really active and communicating. And I just don't have the capacity for that. I know people who have been on school committee or on city council, and they're not on social media at all.
Right.
They don't engage in it, and that's okay too. And so I think it's just important to encourage folks to step up, run, try to, make a difference in the way that you want to make a difference, right? You can make it your own. You don't have to change who you are.
Yeah, no.
Right? Like, that's why we need you to be part of it.
Right.
And that it's okay to do it your way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. We are seeing less and less people run for office. I, talk with my colleagues and other mayors and managers, and we say often, especially recently, that, we're sort of running out of candidates, that we've seen a lot of uncontested races.
Yep.
And, some people even said, I think next year is the year we're going to run out of people to run for office. And it's scary to think about. And that's, kind of why we're doing this podcast for you, because it does take some, motivation. And I think there's a few reasons, we've talked about a couple of the reasons why people, maybe aren't running. Maybe they're, afraid of the commitment of, a lot of people, I think, don't want to campaign. Every once in a while, we end up with an open seat that, because of where it falls in the term, it's actually open for appointment versus a campaign. And we tend to get more people interested in an appointment. It's like they just don't want to go through the campaign.
Yeah.
Again, the attention on their family, the social media chatter. I think they're, afraid of being targeted. And I think some of it, I was thinking about this with someone recently, that I think people are afraid of losing right now. Yeah. There's this sort of, just like fear of losing. Like, I only want to run if I'm going to win. And we've gotten into this habit of sort of passing the baton. Like, we find out when the open seats are going to be. We talk to people who want to run for them, and so you get all these uncontested races. And I think that is, related to how we treat each other. Right. When people do lose the race, and the way we talk about each other, and this sort of environment that we've created around campaigning. Yeah. And sort of a note for all of us to tuck away, to think about that we're discouraging people from running and being confident enough to put themselves in a race, and then being able to process the fact that, if you run, you could lose. Right. And that we can lose with dignity and grace, and we can still be neighbors and friends, and that's important.
That's still a big step. Like, that's part of the process, right?
Yeah.
If you do lose, I mean, you definitely learned something during that process.
Right.
It's not like you just lost and got no experience out of it. And
you can run again.
Right. You can run again.
Yeah.
And to your point with the way people treat people, and it's a big issue. And I think maybe some people think about that, not just not losing, but they put in the work to run these campaigns, and then you have the internet bullies that have a lot to say. They're going 1,000 miles per minute typing their opinions, but they're never there to step up and really lead. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that could be a problem. Like, it's not cute. It's not cute when you decide you just want to bully people online. You know what I mean? It's not. So, but we need to change that. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we need to have each other's back.
Yeah, I think
need to have each other's back.
We can all take the temperature down.
Yeah.
My number one recommendation for everyone as we think about local government and who's running for office and the lack of candidates. And, I was on a panel recently, and we were talking, we were just taking questions, and it was about our experience. And, we were taking questions about what it's been like and the hardest part about our jobs. And it felt like a real downer. The people in the audience were like, why do you guys do this?
Yeah.
I would never want your job. And it was kind of sad to walk away. Like, I really do love my job, and I don't want people to think that it's, about just the bad piece, the bad parts of it. But that, if you look at us and you think, God, I never want that job. Look at how people talk to them, or how they talk about them, or look at the criticisms, and look at, the, like, I call it darts. Like, look at the constant, like, darts and the barrage and the pressure. And, then think about putting yourself in those shoes. If you're like, I don't want that job, well, think about why you don't want that job.
Yeah.
And help us take the temperature down, take the pressure off, like, speak up. And, there's just this assumed negativity. Anytime a decision is made, it's there's this assumption that it came from a poor place. There's this assumption that it was done with no thought. There's this assumption that there was no communication. And so, just help us take a breath, help people take a breath to give us the space to explain ourselves or to, answer your questions. Like the emails that we get that are just attacks. It's just change the tone. Change the tone and say, hey, I don't know if you realize this. Maybe on your end, this made a lot of sense, but to me, this is causing a lot of confusion. In my house, this is a really challenging decision. I want to make sure you know why.
Right.
And maybe nothing will change, but I just want to make sure you hear me.
Right.
We've had some local decisions that they were scheduling conflicts between schools or between events or, and the email comes in just hot.
Yeah.
Hot.
With zero empathy.
And it's like, I don't know what you were
cool.
doing. I don't think you talked to each other. This was terrible. I expect response.
It's easy to be on that side, though.
And then, not even 24 hours later, they're on Facebook like, I never got a response. Well, we have jobs, we are in meetings all day. We were booked. We didn't expect this response. We're not just sitting at our desk to answer email. So take the temperature down, think about why you don't want this job, and then treat us like you would want to be treated.
Right.
Just help us like locally so that we can encourage more people to run and get involved. Like we are your neighbors. We are your peers.
You love your community just as much as we love your community.
Yeah.
And if we love on each other in that way, kind of, like you said, speak to each other versus at each other.
Yes.
We will definitely get, further.
Yeah.
Like for me, like the most gratifying thing about this all is knowing that being part of the solution, I will see it down the line.
Yeah.
I may not benefit from it, but I know my child and his friends and their parents will, right? Just like the reason I'm sitting here, you're sitting here, it's not by accident. It's because somebody put in work before you.
Yes.
And they had the, space to do so. So we need that same environment, you know what I mean, to do the work and allow others to come in and do that work and pass it forward.
Yeah.
Right now, we're not allowing each other to pass anything forward if we're just pulling each other down, so.
And join us. Run for office.
Yeah, 100%.
Get involved. Tell your friends and family to get involved. Think about, think about who you want representing you on these boards and commissions and, encourage those people to run for office. Think about who you're voting for. And, if you don't want to be involved, then you don't have to defend the people who are, but give them some room to breathe.
Right.
Right? Like help take the temperature down.
That's it.
But we'd love to see more people involved. This episode will come out probably in January. It'll be a local election year. And that's why we're doing it. We do want you to, I always say, get in the ring. And papers are usually available for people in the spring, like April timeframe. They're due back in July. You've got to get signatures from folks to get on the ballot. And people, again, they run all different types of campaigns. You can run long campaigns. You can run, sort of flash in the pan, quick campaigns. Depends on your situation, right? Do you have time? Do you have the money? Do you have the sort of freedom from your job and flexibility? And you've got to make that work for you. Starting when you launch your campaign, it needs to be something that feels good for you, right? This is how you're going to run your campaign. It's how you're going to, run your time in office. And I just hope people think about it, make your sort of vision board for the year, whatever it is that you do. Set your New Year's resolutions, your goals, and think about how you could get involved locally. Yeah. And if you're not running for a board or commission, we do have appointed boards and commissions too. But do you have any advice for someone who maybe is going to think about running for office? Yeah,
they should definitely stop being scared and just really just do it. At the end of the day, I think we got each other's back. And that's really what it is. Step it up. You know what I mean? Just come through. You have a why. And it will feel so gratifying as you see things unfold. and the amount of information you'll be not just privy to, but the things that you'll kind of understand, like you will love it. Like, you know what I mean? So I think people should really, really get involved.
Yeah. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, it really is.
So my advice is to just, and you said this too, know your why.
Yeah.
Really understand why you're doing it and, what difference it is that you want to make. And then do some early groundwork and go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. So
reach
hopefully
out
this
to us.
did motivate some people.
Yeah.
Hopefully this was helpful for you to think about maybe running for office is for you.
Definitely.
And always, I'm always available. I'm sure.
Please reach out to us with any questions on our experience.
Yeah, Claudel would say the same. So find us on social and keep listening to Talk Over Tea. We'll be back for more.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you listening.